The room went silent the moment Sarah's boss looked me up and down and smirked. It was the kind of silence that makes you feel like every eye in the room is measuring your worth. Crystal glasses clinked softly in the background, the glow of chandelier lights reflected off polished marble floors, and a quiet tension settled in the air. I could feel the weight of judgment before a single word was spoken. And in that moment, I realized something. Sarah's boss thought I didn't belong there. Before we go further, if you believe kindness, humility, and second chances still matter in this world, take a second to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that appearances don't define people. The event was being held at a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Sarah had worked incredibly hard to earn her position at the marketing firm where she was quickly becoming one of the most respected employees. Her dedication, late nights, and relentless work ethic had finally paid off when she was invited to the company's annual leadership celebration. It was the kind of event where executives gathered, promotions were hinted at, and reputations were quietly decided. I knew how important this night was to her. My name is Michael Carter. I'm not flashy. I don't wear designer suits every day, and I'm more comfortable in work boots than in polished leather shoes. But that night I wore the best suit I owned because Sarah deserved to have someone beside her who looked proud to stand there. And I was proud. More than she knew. As we walked through the ballroom, people greeted Sarah warmly. Some shook her hand, others complimented her recent campaign success. She smiled with a mix of confidence and humility that had always been part of her character. But when we approached the group standing near the center of the room, the mood shifted. Standing there was Victor Langford, the regional director. Tall, perfectly groomed, and carrying the kind of confidence that often came with power. He had the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Victor glanced at Sarah first, offering a professional nod. Then his gaze drifted toward me. Slowly. Critically. His eyes lingered on my watch, my shoes, the simple cut of my suit. Then he smiled in a way that made it clear he had already made up his mind about who I was. The moment felt less like an introduction and more like an evaluation. Around us, the conversation slowed as a few coworkers quietly watched the interaction unfold. Victor began asking questions about me in a tone that sounded polite on the surface but carried something sharper underneath. Each question seemed designed to reveal what he assumed would be an unimpressive answer. What did I do for work? How long had Sarah and I been married? Whether I enjoyed the corporate lifestyle she was stepping into. To him, I was an outsider in a room full of tailored success. And he wanted everyone to see it. But what Victor didn't know was that I had spent most of my life learning something far more valuable than how to impress people at a party. I had learned patience. I had learned humility. And I had learned when to let people underestimate you. Sarah squeezed my hand gently during the conversation, sensing the tension building. I could see the concern in her eyes, but I simply smiled back at her. She had worked too hard to let a moment like this ruin her night. The evening moved forward. Speeches were given. Awards were handed out. Laughter echoed through the ballroom. Yet every so often, Victor would glance in my direction with that same subtle curiosity, as if he were still trying to place me in the category he had already chosen. Then something unexpected happened. Toward the end of the event, the company's CEO stepped onto the stage to give the final speech of the night. His name was Robert Hayes, a respected leader known across the industry for building one of the most successful consulting networks in the country. As Robert finished speaking, he stepped down from the stage and began walking through the crowd, greeting employees and guests. And then his eyes landed on me. The moment he saw me, his face lit up with genuine surprise and excitement. The kind of reaction that instantly caught the attention of everyone nearby. He walked directly toward me. Within seconds, the same people who had barely noticed me earlier were now watching closely. Robert reached me and wrapped me in a warm handshake that turned into a quick hug. Years earlier, before Sarah and I had even met, Robert and I had worked together during one of the hardest chapters of my life. I had been part of a small consulting team that helped rebuild struggling businesses after the financial crisis. Robert had been one of the few executives who believed in the work we were doing when no one else did. We had helped several companies survive, including the very firm Sarah now worked for. I had quietly stepped away from that world years ago to start a non-profit organization that helped small-town entrepreneurs rebuild their lives after bankruptcy or job loss. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. Robert knew that. And when he introduced me to the executives around us as one of the people who had helped shape the company's early survival strategy, the atmosphere around Victor shifted instantly. The man who had been testing me all evening suddenly looked like someone realizing he had misread the entire situation. But the truth is, I didn't feel angry. I felt grateful. Because that night wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about standing beside the woman I loved while she stepped into her future. Sarah looked at me with pride in her eyes, the kind that didn't need words. Victor eventually approached again, this time with a different expression. Respect had replaced his earlier assumptions. Sometimes people think power comes from titles, money, or status. But real strength often comes from something quieter. Character. Loyalty. And the willingness to let your actions speak when the moment finally arrives. Before we reach the end of this story, I have a small request. If you're watching this, comment the word respect below if you believe people should never judge others based on appearances alone. And if this story touched your heart or reminded you that humility and kindness still matter, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to the channel so more people can hear stories like this. Because sometimes, the person being underestimated is simply waiting for the right moment to show who they truly are.